Thank you. We'll give it one more minute. Start here at 10:03, 10:04. I like to be respectful for those who show up on time, but also want to, for you three, and also want to give some time for people hopping in a little bit late. Awesome. Well, we're going to get started right away. Just to start out this conversation, I'm always looking for interaction from the chat for what kind of questions you might be having, what resonates with you. If you want me to dive deeper into something, please jump in and ask about it. If you're running into any specific objections, I would love to hear them later in the training. I wanna end on any common objections that you're running into. If it's in person, if it's over the phone, I think we have a powerhouse here on this channel. And being able to brainstorm the best ways to be able to overcome those and hopefully be able to convert more deals this year. I mean, that's the goal of any training we do, is to empower you to be able to level up your skills and be able to serve more people moving forward. And so kind of the first thing jumping into it is prospecting is hard. And so much of it is depending on your mindset of how you're going into it and what you're kind of choosing to let your thoughts be focused on when you're jumping into a session of calling. And so whenever I start out my time prospecting, the first thing I always think about is what's my goal? What's my aim? Am I here to just be able to potentially find more clients here, or am I here to potentially help people get into a better situation? I always think of myself as a problem solver and not a product pusher. And when you go into it with that lens of like, I have value to add to these people. I can be able to help these people get into a better home situation moving forward. It's going to come across that way in your conversations. And so whenever I'm starting out prospecting, I always spend time thinking. Cooper's jumping in here. Give him a second to connect. Cooper, welcome. Thanks for coming, joining training today. We were just talking about mindset going into prospecting. And we're talking about the first thing is taking your focus and reminding yourself that you are a problem solver and not a product pusher. Because when you choose to kind of focus your mind on that going into it and let that be your motivation, it's going to come across that way in the conversations that you have with people. And so honestly, starting with great mindset is one of the best things that you can do to start. Uh, Beyond that, like the first thing you're going to do when you're going to get in contact with a client is you're going to introduce yourself. And so you want to make sure that you're introducing them in a way that's not going to make them shut down emotionally. It's not going to cause them to close up. And so the way that I really recommend opening up a call is jumping on and saying, "Hey, Danielle," and stay away from asking the question like, "Hey, is this Danielle? Hey, I'm looking for Danielle." Like you want it to come across as like you're not calling through a list necessarily. I mean, you are, but you don't want it to come across that way. Otherwise, they're just going to see themselves to you as another number on that list. And so when you jump on the phone with that person, you want to jump on the phone like it's someone that you're friends with. Uh, and someone that you're close with. Imagine it's a client that you've been helping for a long time now. Like jump on that call and say, "Hey, Jennifer." Like, you're not, "Hey, Jennifer? Is this Jennifer?" No, like that's not what we're looking for. We're looking on like, "Hey, Jennifer." And the person's like, who is this?" Like in a good way. They're not going, "Oh, great, this is a cold call," and then instantly just shutting down emotionally. Because you want them to be somewhat emotionally invested in your call. And so you're going to do anything you can to be able to bridge where you're at to where they're at. And the first thing you can do is opening it up well. And so, yeah, like opening it up from the start of like, hey, Deetra, like, and then they're like, Ye hi, Deetra. Like, where did I meet this person? Like, how does this person know me? And then from there, it's like, hey, this is Danielle. Hey, this is Jennifer. I was just looking here, and it looks like a little while back we were looking to get you into a property, but nothing ended up happening. And I was just curious, did you ever end up finding a property? And I'll always ask that question first. I don't ask them the question, hey, are you still looking for a property? If they're still looking on a property, they're going to be on Zillow. If they're still looking for a property, they're probably already in contact with an agent. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking right now for, do they have a problem right now? And can you be the one to solve that? And first off, they were at one time looking for a property. And so is that still the situation? Did they ever end up finding a property? If they let you know, hey, we closed on a home this year, amazing. Congratulations. And in that situation, it's like, hey, I see that everything's going well for you right now. Like my goal here is to get people into better home situations. It sounds like you've already found that. So amazing. Have a great rest of your day. Versus, no, we didn't end up closing on a property. Okay. Well, what were you looking for in the first place? Like when you were looking, what were you looking for? And from here, if you can get them to respond to that question right there of, hey, in the first place, what were you looking for? That's going to start getting them talking about what they like, why they even picked up the phone or went on Zillow and started looking. We were looking for more space in our house. Oh, we have a really long commute to work. And there you have it right there. That right there is going to be the problem that you're going to aim to solve or prove to them that you're able to solve because you are. Every person on this channel is a qualified and skilled agent, and you have the tools that will be able to get them into their next home. And so starting there of being able to, hey, did you end up getting into a home? Uh, and then transferring that to, what were you looking for in the first place? And throughout the call, one of the really important things that you can do is take off any pressure on yourself to come across really salesy. Be yourself, be excited, like you're leading the conversation, but at the same time, you're not jumping on, hey, this is Joe with Pemberton Homes team. Did you ever end up finding a home? Like, no, like that's not my personality. That's not how I come across. Like, I'm a very genuine, authentic person, and I embrace that on my calls. Hey, this is Joe. It looks like we're looking for at some homes in Mantonka earlier this year, but my records are showing that we never ended up finding anything. Were you still looking for a property or did you end up finding something? Uh, and just being able to come across as unbiased. When you show bias on your calls, that usually means that the person can't trust you. Or at least that's kind of what it says. Like if you really put pressure on someone in a salesy, like typical sales manner, it takes away that person's trust in you. And so you want to come across as just like, hey, I'm here to solve your problems. Like I'm here, I'm calling you, I'm not just trying to find more people to build more business for myself this year. I'm genuinely just calling you because, it looks like you had a problem at some point and I'm here to solve that. I saw a question here in the chat. What is the best message to leave on a voicemail? Longer or shorter is better. Do the ISAs get callbacks from messages left very often? When I'm calling, I usually will take a list of people and I want to try to hit that list 3 to 4 times in a week. And so if that's 20 numbers, or if that's when I was calling full time, that was more like 150 when it was my full-time job. And usually, if you can take 20 numbers and go through that list like 3 to 4 times in a week, a lot of people who aren't going to pick up the first time are going to pick up the third or fourth or second, third or fourth time. Once you get to that fourth call, that's kind of the point where they're picking up or they're not picking up. If they haven't picked up by that fourth dial, they're probably not going to. Like, let's have you call in after, because the goal is making connections. But it's kind of like, think about it from your own perspective. Like, I'm holding my phone, I see some number ending, and I usually only look at the last four numbers. When I get a call, I see 0456 called me. And then the next day 0456 called me. I'm like, third time it's like 0456. Like, those numbers stick in my head and I start to recognize that. And eventually I'm gonna be curious enough that I'm gonna pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, and so I recommend calling people in kind of batches like that if you're reaching out for the first time. And with that, for the first round of calling, I'm usually not gonna leave a message, and I'm usually gonna Danielle, you're muted, but I would love to hear what you have to say.
That's what I wanted to know. Do you leave a message the first time? And if you do, how long is your message? At any point, like what's effective for a voicemail? Is there an effective voicemail
Yes.
script?
And it's so simple, and I'm gonna share it in just a second. So first call, I usually don't leave a voicemail. Now, I will either call back usually the next day. I don't usually recommend calling somebody for the first couple calls, calling them the same day multiple times. If it's a really high value lead that's coming, if they're inquiring towards us, I'll call them multiple times in a day. But if I'm reaching out to them, I don't want to come across as extremely needy or desperate to them. And so I'm calling them once per day. In that second email, that second message or second phone call, I'm going to leave a message this time. And in this message, I'm going to jump on and say, hey, Jennifer, this is Joe. I was just giving you a call. Give me a call back when you get the chance. Like, I'm not leaving anything in there super specific about Zillow or real estate. I'm just calling them like they're somebody in my neighborhood I know, and I'm just saying, "Hey, this is Joe. Give me a call back when you get the chance." Because if you bring up like the whole reason for your call, they're not going to call you back. Now, that's what I would do for the second call, and I'll probably leave a voicemail on the third and fourth also. On my fourth call, I'll typically say like, "Hey, this is Danielle. Like, been trying to reach you the last couple days. Would love to hear back from you. If not, no worries." And then on that last call, sometimes I'll go a little bit more into detail because it's almost like your ultimate Hail Mary. Like, but when you're still going to be calling after somebody, like when you're still going to be calling after somebody, like if you're going to call them one more time, I would just leave it at, "Hey, this is Danielle. Give me a call back when you get the chance." Like, keep it super simple. You're not giving them a sales pitch. And in fact, oftentimes when you go in the direction of really putting a sales pitch into a conversation, sometimes you end up putting so much pressure on yourself in that instant that it actually causes you to kind of stumble over your words. You come across a little bit more not yourself. And so oftentimes, like, even when you get to the point in a cold call, and I'm kind of skipping over here, so I apologize, but uh, when you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, I've had a good conversation. This person is looking for a three-bedroom home in West Metro. They currently live in East Metro and work in West Metro, and so they need a smaller commute. And so sometimes, like, I think the natural tendency is to really go in the direction of leaving a very strong sales pitch of like, hey, this is my value prop. This is how I'm gonna uh be able to do this, be able to solve these problems. And oftentimes, if you go that direction, you're gonna actually like end up coming across salesy, and you're probably gonna stumble over your words a bit. I really recommend just keeping it much more down to earth and keeping it focused on next step with them. Hey, like, I know you're looking, and I'll always repeat back what they're looking for. Hey, Dietra, I know that you were looking for a three-bedroom home out in Minnetonka, and I'm just wondering if it makes sense. Like, our next step could be if I sent over some properties that might interest you, that I think might interest you in that area. And then if any of those stand out, we could go see them together. I mean, would that work well with you? And so just keeping it very, very down to earth, very simple. Usually when I converted leads to appointments, like the last thing I would say, and this is coming across from the ISA perspective. Like I find out their search criteria, I find out what they're looking for, I find out they're not working with an agent, and I find out they have interest in moving in the next year. Hey Danielle, like just hearing a little bit about what you're saying that you're looking for, I really think that my team might be able to find some solutions for you. And I want to take some time to have our team do some research quick to be able to find what properties are out there that are in your price point, that are that meet your needs right now. Would it be all right if we did some research on that and then gave you a call back later today? And usually the person would be like, "Yeah, absolutely, of course." Like, and then like that would lead to really smooth transitions there. And so, yes, like keep it simple, keep it down to earth. Now, something to keep in mind when you're making outbound calls is most likely you're not going to be finding people who are going to move next week or next month. You're going to be finding people where they're about 5, 6 months out. And therefore, whenever you start prospecting, I know agents who started prospecting and they did it every 5 days a week and 5 days a week and a month or two later they're like, this is stupid. I haven't converted anything. It hasn't done anything good for me. And so they give up at that point. And so one of the really important things with prospecting is going at it with the right mindset of I'm investing into myself and I'm going to see a return 5 to 6 months from now. And so I'm going to set a goal for myself that makes sense that I can stay consistent with for the next 5 to 6 months here. And so maybe that means less not calling every single day. Maybe it does. But setting realistic goals for yourself where you're like, okay, I'm going to call 3 days a week for 2 hours. I'm going to start my mornings out on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And I'm going to do 2 hours of prospecting. And if you can stay with that, consistent with that, you're going to start to see the return on that come this summer. You're going to see it come about 5 to 6 months from now. And majority of the people that you get in contact with, you're going to be setting follow-ups with. Like, hey, we're really interested. We want to keep looking at properties. Like, let's touch base again in 2 to 3 months. Let's touch base. And when they say that, you're going to touch base with them monthly. Because being able to stay consistent with them, top of mind with them, make sure that you are in contact with them when they are looking to move is vital in order to convert them in the end. And so going at it from that perspective of like, it's gonna take 5 to 6 months for this person to actually convert because you're taking somebody who's if they've already been planning on moving, they've probably already inquired on Zillow. You're actually driving interest here and you're becoming the problem solver, you're the knowledge broker here, and you're getting them from the point like very starting block to the end. And this is where follow-up calls are important because I would recommend like every other month. If somebody's 6 months out, a year, 6 months to a year out, like I would recommend giving them a text once a month and then a call once a month, alternating between that. So they're getting a text every other month and a call every other month. And here it's like, okay, I'm gonna give this person a follow-up call. What do I even say here? And you don't want to, and so this means that you're using FUB well with setting tasks for yourself in the future so that when you make a solid connection with somebody on a cold call, you're able to follow up with them a month from now, 2 months from now. But let's say you have a great call with them, you send them some properties, they're kind of thinking 3 to 4 months out. And so a month from now, you send them a text with some properties. The next month, you're jumping on a call with them. And here your introduction is going to be a little bit different. This is my favorite intro for a follow-up call is like, hey, Danielle, this is Joe. I was just between appointments here and wanted to give you a call quick. I know we had spoken last month about so and so, about finding this property. I'm naming off their criteria. I'm naming the reason they were looking to move. And then just asking them where they're at with it. Hey, is our timeline still this July? Is our timeline still and if it gets to be about March and they're saying July, this is where you're talking to them like, hey, I typically start working with my buyers about 3 to 4 months out from actually transacting. And I'm just wondering if it makes sense to potentially like find out if they have a home to sell. If they have a home to sell, then that's the point where you're like, hey, I start working with sellers 3 to 4 months out from actually transacting. And so I think and then from there you can transition into potentially talking about going and seeing the home in person. You can talk about potentially going out and letting them know, like talking to them like, hey, there might be some improvements that we could do on your property that would up the value of it significantly. Uh, would and then if they gauge any interest whatsoever in that, like this is what I would do. Like I'd pull out my phone, I'd be like, I'm looking at my calendar here and I'm seeing that I actually have a free morning on Saturday where I don't have anything going from about 9 to noon. I'm wondering if any point in there works for you for me to pop by. Because then if you like they can't really ghost you when you're showing up at their house as easily. And that's why I like sellers sometimes more than buyers. But yeah, like if they gauge any interest in like, yeah, I mean, maybe it would make sense to get a quick CMA on the property to find out exactly what we could sell it for in July. And just so that we can make a educated decision. And sometimes people will push back on you here, uh push back, and it's like, hey, like no pressure at all here. I'll sometimes like say it's our job to make sure that you're able to make an educated decision when the time comes. And so I understand like selling a home is a big decision, and we wouldn't want you to walk into any big decision like that without knowing all of the facts. And so and I think it would make sense for me to drop by sometime this week to just walk the property with you. And after that, like, and I can also run some comps on the property, be able to see like exactly what we would potentially be able to sell it for within the timeline that you're talking about. And that way you can have a good idea of that way you can make an educated decision moving forward on if you want to sell or if you don't. And again, it's just my job at the end of the day to make sure that you have that you are educated on those facts. And so, because yeah, like sellers, sometimes it's weird to have somebody come walk through their house. I saw another thing in the chat. I started working in buyers 3 to 4 months. Yeah, yeah. That's a great line because a lot of people will typically say like, hey, like I'm not we're about 6 months out. Hey, like I typically start working with my buyers 5 to 6 months out, just starting to send them properties so that they get a uh feel for what feel for what is on the market, and then uh so that they can get a feel for what's on the market and so that we can potentially find what sort of property they're looking for. And so then like you start sending them properties. Also, if you could start sending them properties, this makes your follow-up calls in the future much easier. Because like let's say I have a great connection with Jennifer here. And we talk about like she's looking for this type of property. She wants to see it in this timeline here. She wants to move within move by this date. And then I send her property that perfectly fits what she's talking about. And then the next day, give her a call. Hey Jennifer, this is Joe. I sent over 2 or 3 properties yesterday and that I thought might interest you, and I just wanted to know what you thought. Like, ask them that question. If they're like, yeah, I mean, we didn't really like I don't know if we'd be interested in seeing them. This is where you kind of follow up that question with like, okay, and what about that property did you not like? Be able to find out pros and cons for the property, like and sometimes like I'll just mention it in the sense of like, hey, I want to make sure that the stuff I'm sending you is very relevant to you, and I'm curious like with this property here, like what would have to change with this property for you to have any interest in it or not? And then from there, it's like they can say like, I mean, it was honestly the perfect property, like it met all our boxes. Huh. Well, I'm just curious, like this property does fit all your boxes here. Like, uh, I mean, what's holding you back from potentially wanting to take a look at it? And then they're like, we're not ready or so on. Like, okay, okay. How come? And tell me more about that. And just always ask those really simple, like non-aggressive questions. Tell me more about that. How come? Like, and then being able to find the actual reason there. Because most of the time they'll be able to say, like, oh, we didn't like this, we didn't like this. And you can talk to that as you can bring solutions to that. But otherwise, like if everything fits, like, I'm just curious, like, uh, and then just tell me more about that. It's my favorite question to ask. Does anyone have any specific questions?
No, this is just really helpful. Thank you, Joe.
I hope it is. I hope it is. We're coming right to half hour, which is kind of where I want to keep these trainings for Thursday. And I also feel like I've just talked plenty enough. Uh, but yeah, like, isn't any specific objections, anything that like, or even like anything that just kind of scares you about picking up the phone, or if there's anything specific, like I would love to hear it. If not, I want to thank you all for showing up today. I hope I was able to provide just at least one value point for you today. And so with that, I hope to see you all at call night tonight. Otherwise, I'll see you throughout the week.
Thanks, Joey.